with Pixel Productions. Having anxiety and depression is like being scared and tired at the same time. It's the feeling of failure with no urge to be productive. It's wanting friends but hating to socialize. It's a feeling of being lonely but not wanting to be alone. It's caring about everything and then caring about nothing. Yes, today we're going to talk about mental health. In 2019, 1 out of 8 people, or 970 million people around the world, were living with mental health disorders, with anxiety and depressive disorders being the most common. Did you also know that women are more prone to depression than men? It's still a taboo to talk about mental health in the society where we live in, be it at home, with family and friends, in the work environment, or outside work. So it's very important to recognize, tackle, and deal with mental health. Candidly sharing her journey about mental health is our guest today, Hamsika Prakash. Hamsika, just to give you a bit about Hamsika, she's an aspiring mental health advocate, a severe depression and suicide attempt survivor. On a positive note, she's an aspiring content writer. She's very interested in filmmaking, in editing, planning events, anything creative, she has it all. Very recently, Hamsika did represent Victoria in the national finals of Australia Galaxy Pageant and won the title of Mrs. Charity 2023 for having collected the maximum amount of funds which went towards youth mental health. Thank you so much, Hamsika, for being today in my podcast. I really, really appreciate your time. So how are you doing today?
First of all, thank you so much, Mary, for having me on your show. I remember initially when we were discussing and when you asked me if I want to be on your show, the first thing that I asked you was, what have I done?
What have I achieved?
What have I achieved
Yes.
that you're calling me on your show? And you spoke so much, and you gave me examples of what inspiration actually means and why you're doing this show. And I'm just so glad and so grateful that you have invited me to your show. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Hamsika. As I always say, this podcast is all about inspiring and getting inspired. So to begin with, Hamsika, in 2020, right, life is beautiful. You have a beautiful family, you had an amazing career, amazing friends, everything was going on well. It was a perfect world, if I can put it that way. When did you recognize the signs of depression? So how did it all begin, Hamsika?
To be frank, it actually started way before 2020.
Okay.
So when I was 17 years old, that's when I was initially diagnosed with depression. I went through a lot during that phase. So when I was 15, 16 and 17 during my grade 10 to 12, there were a lot of issues, a lot of bullying, a lot of verbal abuse that I've been through while I was
Very terrible,
studying.
isn't it?
Yeah, so that's how my depression journey started.
So it went back
Yes.
probably in the early 2020s, probably, yeah?
And that's when I also had did my first suicide attempt as well. That was the biggest sign for me to say that something is not right. I still have that mark, the one I slit. So it wasn't an easy journey, and when I started noticing the same signs, so as you mentioned in your intro, there's no explanation. It's called invisible illness for a reason, because you don't know what's happening with your body. You know that you need help, but you don't know how to express. So when I started going to my GP, I had a lot of health issues as well, and I had never taken a medical leave in my life, and it was during 2020 that I had like a month time off from work, and it was a bit surprising for me because I never had any health issues, and then there I was getting back to back issues. And one of those days I was admitted for like half a day to undergo a procedure, and it was the first time in my life that I was admitted. And just before they were putting the gas anesthetic, I was noticing there was a nurse, there were like I think 2-3 nurses and a doctor, and it felt very weird, and it felt like, what have I done to myself? I'm getting a lot of other ailments because of one thing, and I don't know what that one thing is. When I had a panic attack and when I got the thoughts of harming myself again, that's when I was like, no, this is probably depression. This is probably a relapse, and I have to get it checked.
Yes.
And then I spoke to my GP and I told her I feel this is something more than what. It just cannot be a physical illness. There is something more to it. And then we did all the tests and stuff, and that's when I got to know that I have clinical depression, and it was pretty severe when I was diagnosed. Yeah.
So when you got to know that yes, I am going through depression, and how were you able to accept it? How was the acceptance level just by yourself? Wouldn't it be a bit, oh my God, what am I going through?
Yeah.
And because you, as you rightly said, it's an invisible illness, and suddenly you get diagnosed. To accept it also it takes a lot of guts, a lot of courage, isn't it? How did you accept it, Hamsika?
It wasn't easy at all, because you have to get up, show up at work. You have your events, you have your friends, you have your family.
Yes.
You cannot be sulking all the time.
Yes.
Of course, everyone takes time to heal. Everyone's journey of healing is totally different. But with me, I should have probably taken my time off healing, but that's the mistake I did, and I didn't take that time off. So for me, I was trying to do things, so many things, so I can keep myself occupied, and so I don't get into that zone where I'm thinking I'm not doing anything, I'm not worth anything, because there are always people who make you feel like you're worthless. And while growing up, not everyone will have the same conditions, and the society in which you grow matters a lot.
Correct.
So with me, there was this good girl image that a lot of us in my batch, if I may say, I'm not generalizing, but there were a lot of us who had this good girl image thing going on, and we had taken that pressure of keeping ourselves up to it. Like, you cannot do this. If you do this, you're not a good girl. So that pressure of being a good girl, it was haunting me for a lot of years. I think it has taken me more than 30 years to
come out of that zone.
To come out of it, and it's not easy to unlearn the things that you have learned.
That's so true.
Right from your childhood, right?
Correct.
It's that sometimes it's the generational trauma that you go through. Growing up in a patriarchal society, it's not easy.
Correct.
And you go through a lot of things, and at each stage of life, when you realize that whatever you learned is not helping you, instead it is harming you, be it at the workplace, be it when you go out with friends, when you try to socialize, my confidence level was always low. People were thinking I was very confident because...
A very bubbly character,
Yeah, so I'm not denying that I'm not that, but there are times where you just cannot do it anymore. And I was pushing myself to do it. I was pushing myself to look as if nothing is wrong, as if I'm fine, everything is fine.
That being that good girl kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So you're always, the society teaches you to prioritize others over your own self.
And that's so wrong, because if you are good, then the family and everything, the society is good, isn't it? Because as you rightly said, Hamsika, whenever it comes to us, to our own personal self, we always take a backseat. We always try to prioritize everyone else apart from us. There are times where it makes sense, but I think so we need to take care of ourselves, isn't it? So then when you got recognized and diagnosed with depression, with severe depression, did you seek medical attention, medical help, or did you think that no, gradually I'm going to be fine? Or what did you do?
When I was initially diagnosed back in when I was at 17 years old, at that time, back in India, not everyone had an idea of what this is.
Yes.
My mother had a fair bit of idea because she has studied psychology, so she knew that something is wrong and she was seeing signs. And she spoke to me about it a little bit, but not too much as well. So somewhere I knew that okay, these are the signs, this might be this. But that time I was not given any medical attention because when we went to the doctor to talk about this, I was told, because I was 17 years old, I was not even 18. We were told that I cannot be going through that antidepressant phase because
Yes.
I'm less than 18. But I mean, it doesn't make any sense now to me.
Yeah.
But back then we were like, okay, maybe, because we didn't have much
Yeah.
knowledge about it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, true.
So this time I knew that I need help because it was a lot, because I was not given that proper medical attention back then. I knew very well that if I don't go through a therapist or if I don't go through that antidepressant, those things, because I was not able to sleep. That's the whole point. And I've always been this person who doesn't give it back to people. Like, I just take it, I keep
Yes.
it within myself. I
Yes.
hold myself so much, and I'm an overthinker. And I keep thinking. I get so frustrated because I cannot give it back to people.
And I think so all this added to the condition which you were going
Exactly.
through, right?
And I was not sharing it with anyone. I
Anyone.
was keeping everything to myself. And I was getting more and more frustrated. And because I cannot show it on other people, I was showing it on myself. I was harming myself. It
Not
might be
good.
in the smallest,
Forms.
I mean, any form is wrong.
Correct.
But for me, it went to a point where I was like super frustrated and I just wanted to harm myself because I'm not able to do anything about it. I'm not able to give it back to people. So all these things going on in my head, I was not able to sleep. So the doctor said, you have to start your antidepressant phase because you've gone to a level where there is no going back.
Correct.
You have to recover, you have to
Yes.
start healing.
Correct.
And before I ask you to go to a therapist, I need you to start sleeping and not sleep like 3 or 4 hours a day. And even then, I would realize that I'm awake subconsciously because I used to only overthink about things.
Yes.
Again, the frustration of not being able to give it back and
Yes.
just holding everything. So when I started my antidepressant, the first, I think 52 to 56 hours, I couldn't sleep straight up. I was going to work. I had just come
That
out.
is after taking antidepressants.
Yeah, I was told by the doctor
Doctor.
that because my body, it's a new, it's like a medication that's entering the body, so
Yeah.
there will be a lot of reactions.
Yeah, it takes time.
Yeah, it
The
takes
process,
time. I
yes.
was having so much of a headache and I was not able to sleep. I had to go to work and
Yeah.
I was not working from home, even
Yeah.
though it was like COVID and everything.
Yeah.
I had to go to work every day. So
Yeah.
you have to go to work, you have to show up, you have to look fine,
Yes.
and slowly it starts making you drowsy, but
Correct.
you're still not able to sleep. So it's only after those first initial 52 to 56 hours, I think. I remember this because I was making notes. I was writing whatever I was feeling. In my notes, I've written like I was feeling like screaming into the pillow. I was feeling like like banging something, just
Is
breaking
this all
something.
the side effects of those antidepressants?
Um,
Maybe? No?
I'm not sure. Like later in the stage, I started noticing a lot of other things. The biggest being that I had like a little bit of short-term memory loss.
Oh no.
And I didn't even realize this until one day at work, because I was doing an accounts payable job at the moment, and I remember I paid a vendor twice,
Oh god.
and because it was not approved, my manager has to approve it.
Correct.
And when he went to approve it, and he was like,
I've approved this
yeah,
before.
and
what's
it was
happening?
I think around 7 grand or something. That's a lot of money.
Exactly.
And he knew straight up that
Something is wrong.
something is wrong. And he asked me, why are you paying this
Twice.
twice? And that's when it started striking me that okay, this is very weird. And then I started slowly noticing that I am forgetting a lot of things. Like if I had a conversation previous night, I take my antidepressant, I get up in the morning, my mind is clear.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons probably why some people get addicted to antidepressant, because it makes you forget things. So you're not remembering the worries or probably people might go through some fights, some disappointments.
Yeah.
You get up in the morning, you don't even remember what happened on the previous night. And
Yes.
for me, it kept happening.
Mm.
And I was hearing from people that, but I already told you.
Yes.
Why are you asking me again?
Correct.
And a lot of those repetitive things made me feel like, okay, maybe something is not right. And then I spoke to my GP again, and she was like, yeah, that is one of the side effects. It will eventually fade off once you're off the medication, but it is one of those things that you...
It would have been such a difficult time, isn't it?
It is, and till date, whatever happened between 2020 and 2022, there are a lot of things that till date I cannot remember.
Okay.
They might be the smallest of the details.
Yes,
you asked me anything before that, I remember. After that, I remember. But those 2 years, until I finished my antidepressant, like a lot of things I cannot remember.
It's like a mental blank.
Yes, it is. And a lot of people I know have taken advantage of this. They didn't know what I was going through.
So that was my next question. So you were going through all this, Hamsika, but you had to still go to work, show up at work, and meet your friends and do what you normally do, flashing that beautiful smile of yours. But did anyone even notice that something is wrong with this girl inside? Because we all were around you, but we didn't know anything, right? So how did everyone else get to know what you were going through?
Apart from my parents and my brother and of course my husband, no one else
knew about it.
And then I told a couple of friends, and till date she's the only one. Her name is Kavya. She lives in Singapore, and she's actually my friend's wife. And we are very close, and she's the only one
who
knew about it. And I used to tell her everything. Even now I tell her everything, whatever I go through. So no one else knew, and again I was really worried about being judged.
That's the thing, because once if you tell anyone, you have that worry about what is going to happen. So that leads me to my next question. So then you went public, Hamsika, on social media about your mental health. So after you went public, did a lot of people empathize on you, or were you being judged, or did people think you're putting yourself out there just to get that sympathy from people? How did that whole phase go through?
It was a mixture of all of
what I just said.
Whatever you just said.
I
was very overwhelmed with the support I received. I don't know, it just one day I just woke up and I'm like, no, I cannot be scared of being judged. This is how I've been all my life, always thinking what other people think of me and just doing things which make sorry.
It's
It just got me reminded of a few things, the initial things when
you went public.
when I went public about it.
Because that takes a lot of courage, Hamsika, wherein, as I told in my intro, it's still a taboo. People don't talk about it. And for you to put yourself out there, especially on a social platform, it would have taken you a lot of courage to do that. But then I think so, because you're a very strong person, that is just a trait within yourself, right? So irrespective of whatever people would have said, you would have said, no, whatever I've done, I'm glad I did it.
There was a time when I was like, I did all my article, I wrote everything, and I, of course, my husband proofreads it first, and then I send it to my parents. Because they need to be aware of this as well, of course. Without their support, there is no way I would have been able to do this. Also, because if I'm writing my story, that will also include them, because they're a big part of my life. So I cannot just say, okay, I'm just going to write it and post it without even letting them know, or without taking that consent from them. So they were very supportive. They stood by me, my brother, my husband, parents, sister-in-law, everyone. So it was, when I actually put it out, there were a lot of people who started messaging me, calling me, and they were like, what are you talking about? Is this real?
I remember, Hamsika, when I saw that also, I reached out to him like, oh my good God, what is this? What is happening, right?
There were a lot of people, and the best part is there were few people who I haven't spoken to in ages. Probably I last spoke to them maybe when I was in school. And they reached out and they felt like sharing their story, which they have not shared, and they felt as if it's a safe space, because
Correct.
they know that I've gone through the same thing, so I'm not going to judge them.
Correct.
So that made me feel really good. But then, of course, there are also people who stopped talking without any reason. Like, there was nothing said, there was nothing spoken, but I know it was discussed. Even now, I know a lot of things that I post, it gets screenshotted and then sent it to different people, and then she's doing all this for this, she wants publicity. No,
It's not.
I have been quiet for the longest of time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be quiet anymore, and I'm not afraid of being judged
Yes.
now. So I have taken enough from people. The thing is, I was giving other people the liberty to stand up for myself. No, there are no one to stand up for me. I need to
You
stand
need
up
to
for
stand up for
myself.
yourself.
So
Exactly.
the liberty that I gave for, because they are standing up for me, they took the liberty of putting me down as well. So when I started facing a lot of public humiliation, that's when I started drawing my boundaries.
Yep.
But when people think it from there and they're like, oh, I've been so nice to her, I've done so many things for her, but she's, having all these boundaries with me, but they don't step back and reflect to see what they might have done for me to do that. There's no open conversation that happens, and it happened with a lot of people. Till date, there are people who literally just stopped talking to me after I posted, and I know a lot of things were spoken behind me, but it's okay. Now that I have reached this stage, I only feel like let them heal. Maybe they need help too. I don't know. So I'm not going to judge anyone. I felt bad, yes. I cried, yes. And I was telling my husband as well, the more I put it out there, the more probably people will start walking out of my life. And both my husband and my brother, they were like, then that will only leave you with people who actually and genuinely love you. So you will start noticing that who genuinely cares and who probably don't. So yeah, that's the biggest thing.
I think that's there's two sides to every story, right? Like when you put yourself out there, yes, there are positives and negatives to it, but then you know where to draw a line in the sand and what you need to do, right? So my next question to you is, Hamsika, what kind of advice you would like to give parents or friends or family or colleagues out there who are experiencing all these symptoms that you just spoke with their loved ones? What would your advice be to them?
I always feel like all the experiences that we have had in our life, it defines a pattern. We are what we are, the way we behave, everything is a pattern. So I would say, when you notice there is something different in a pattern, a person is not behaving like his or her usual self, there is no harm in having that conversation. They might be having a bad day, it might not be as serious as any of the mental illness. But there's no harm in asking them that question. I have been in that place as well. Like, I have failed to notice that, or even if I noticed, when I was young, in my teenage days, I would think it more from an ego perspective. I'm like, why is this person not talking to me? Why should I go and approach? And it has happened less number of times, but I wouldn't lie saying that, oh, it has never happened, I've always been the one who has approached. No, but now that with all my experiences, I have learned how important it is to approach, to provide them that safe space to say that, you can. They might not trust them completely, but then it's no harm in asking them the question. Like, just ask, is everything okay? You don't seem to be your usual self. Notice the patterns. That person might be really sad. They might be showing a lot of symptoms step by step. So once you start noticing the pattern, you really need to start approaching for open conversations. And you shouldn't think that, oh, why should I discuss all these things with my kid? Why should I discuss with my friend? What will they think? Etc. So I would say open conversations is really, really important than thinking that we shouldn't be discussing about all these things.
Hamsika, what advice you would like to give either parents or colleagues or family or friends who are experiencing something similar in their own homes with their loved ones? What advice would you like to give them, Hamsika?
The first thing I would say is, look out for that one person with whom you can start sharing things. Or if you already have that person, please talk, have open conversations. It's really important to start speaking, because I've made the mistake of holding everything within myself and not speaking when I need to, and it's of no use. It's absolutely of no use. You're going to harm yourself more. And with depression or any kind of mental health illness, right, when it's physical, you can explain it to the doctor that, okay, I'm having pain here, this is what is happening, discomfort, etc. With any of the mental health illnesses or depression, you literally don't know what to explain. Like, if the doctor asks me, I say I'm not myself, but I'm not able to put it in words what exactly is happening.
Yes.
And because of this, there is that constant physical pain that keeps happening. So for me, I didn't speak about it a lot. I just kept it to myself. I was thinking, okay, maybe I did this, that's why it's hurting. Maybe I did that, that's why it's hurting. So if you start seeing the signs, please, it doesn't have to be your immediate family member. You can have a conversation with a friend who you feel, with whom you feel that's a safe place, and you can start discussing. You need to speak more and more about it, and it's always good to have like the knowledge transfer that happens. I so wish while we were growing up back in our schools, we had all these mental health workshops that highlights all these important aspects, but back then it was like a big taboo, and it still is in a lot of places.
Yes.
So kids these days at least have access to a lot of things online, which we never had.
Yeah.
So the more you know about it, the more research you do about it, it's really good. And as I was saying, there is this behavioral pattern that happens. Like, you know that a person behaves in a certain way, but the moment you start noticing there is a change, there might be a reason why they're behaving the way they are.
Yes.
So there's no harm in going and approaching them and taking that initiative to start the conversation. So like, again, it all comes back to conversation. So it's so important to speak, to just speak.
Yes. So what you're saying is just don't bottle up things.
Yes.
Even if there is a small change in behavior, it might not be something relating to mental health at all.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, if you're seeing something different, always have a conversation with that person and see, is there anything that I can do for you?
Yeah.
And those, as you rightly said, communication is the key.
Yeah.
It's not good to bottle things up and keep.
Yeah.
It's always good to talk about it. As you rightly said, if you're not happy, to share it with your family. If you have some good friends, it's always good to open up.
Yeah.
So now, Hamsika, if you go back to when you were 17, or even in 2020 when you were diagnosed with depression, or even before that, what advice you would give your own self who did not know what was happening inside, right?
Yeah. I would probably tell her that this is my most favorite thing that I would like to keep telling myself, right? That I am much more deserving than what anyone made me feel.
Yes.
And the advice that I would give is stop bottling down. Like, don't hoard yourself with thoughts.
Yes.
Just speak up.
Yes.
If you cannot do it like right away, at least find a right time, speak about it, clear things then and there, and just move on. That is something that I need to keep reminding myself even now, because I'm an overthinker. I always overthink.
Yes.
Most of the times my intuition is right, but there are also times when it's a mess, and I would have already damaged my health so much by thinking about it and losing my sleep over it. So.
And what I also think, Hamsika, correct me if I'm wrong, is because we're going to, if a person is going through all this, like how we were going through, it also affects the family around you, isn't it?
Yeah.
So seeking help is always a good thing.
Yeah.
So now, Hamsika, why do you think it's important to talk about mental health?
Because it's an invisible illness, and it's very hard to talk about what you're going through. And the more and more you avoid talking about it, the more harm you're doing it to yourself. There's nothing small or big. It's not like, oh, let me wait for a few more days, maybe I'll feel better and then I'll start talking. No, it can be the smallest of things. Every person is different.
Yes.
I might have taken a lot. There are some people who might be able to take much more than what I have, or much lesser than what I have. So if not treated properly, there is a lot of chances that the person might harm themselves. So imagine when I did attempt to harm myself, if anything had gone wrong, what would I leave my family with?
Correct.
So it's just so important. Communication, again, coming back to the same thing, like to speak. Now I'm not scared of talking about anything. There was a time when I didn't want anyone to know I have depression.
Yes.
I was like, okay, they're going to start judging me. They're not going to include me in their groups and stuff.
Yes.
Now I'm not bothered. Even if it's just me, I'm fine. But I'm happy that I'm healing. I'm healing in my own way. And I've taken this really seriously, and I'm working a lot on myself. It cannot be an overnight change.
No, all this takes time. But you're in the right track.
Yes, I'm
because
in the right
you did
track.
seek help.
Yeah.
And as you rightly said, you're healing now.
Yes.
Which is such a good thing. It's
Yes.
so nice to see that Hamsika back.
Yeah.
So, finally, Hamsika, now, from being a mental health survivor, if I can say it that way, to representing Victoria as a finalist for the Australia Galaxy Pageant, that's a big, it's like a major, it's like going from one pole to the extreme, the other pole, isn't it? So how did you take the courage to come out of your comfort zone and put yourself out there in those challenging situations? Because taking part in a pageant, trust me, I've been through it, it's not easy. So what made you do it? If you can talk about that, please.
So that's probably one of the best things that has happened to me.
That's good to know.
Yeah, definitely, because I feel like a totally different person post Australia Galaxy Pageants. So I met this girl when we were doing a short movie, Meaning a Hedge. That's when I met this girl called Diana, and we kept in touch, and she had taken part in a pageant, and she generally just approached me and said, do you want to take part? We can do it together if we get selected.
Yeah.
And again, the first question, why me? Like, I'm not even eligible to do anything related to fashion or beauty and stuff. And then she explained to me how the pageant system is, what happens, and how much of that confidence and self-esteem, it's an amazing thing
brings all that out,
yes,
right? That
brings
confidence
all
that goes
that out.
Yes.
And I was like thinking, okay,
should I do it or not?
Yeah, should I do it or not?
Yes.
And I discussed with my husband, and he was like, what is it that you lose? You're not losing anything.
That's
just apply. Just because you apply doesn't mean they're going to select you.
Yes.
So just take step one, apply, see what happens.
And then take it from there.
Yeah, we'll take it from there. So I applied, and it took me 3 weeks to finally go and click on
that submit. Yes.
I was like, I used to fill it up and go back, fill it up, go back. And then they said, I've been shortlisted. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
And then from then I had my interview over a phone call. And then finally in Jan, when I got to know that I've been selected. Again, I didn't believe. I thought they might have sent that email in fluke, they say.
Yes.
Like, no. And then they sent me my sash and my tiara. That's when I was like,
it's happening. It's
really happening. And from there, for me, probably it was no looking back. Initially, I was very hesitant because, as you rightly said, it's so much, it's completely out of my comfort zone to do something like this. I've never done this in my life. So every step was a learning experience, was such a big learning experience, and it started improving my confidence. I have not taken care of my skin and hair like the way I did.
That's good.
During that time, I learned so many things.
Yes.
I used to fall back, I used to get up, I used to fall back, but the percentage started decreasing. The way I was working with myself, the way I was working on myself for my mental peace and stuff, everything started helping. And I remember you used to call me every week, and you were like giving me all the suggestions and tips and all the inspiring things that you can do this, you can do that.
Correct.
So everything helped me so much when and I cannot express the joy I had when I was literally on that stage walking with judges sitting there, my husband
That's
sitting there.
an amazing feeling, isn't it? You can't even put it to words.
Yeah, exactly. And I just didn't want to get off the stage. I was like, can I just stay here for a few more minutes?
Yeah, that's good. So, and again, my last question was, did you do this pageant so that it could help you in any way, increase your self-esteem, which you said it did?
Yeah, definitely. a lot of people have these thing that it's all about being in a particular shape, particular size.
Exactly.
There's a lot of misconceptions about
Correct.
pageants, and I
Yes.
want to say that if you have an opportunity, if you think you can do it, you should really
Put yourself out there.
put yourself out there. And it was such an amazing experience for me, and I would recommend everyone, if you have a chance, if you think you can do
You
it,
should do it.
please do it. Yeah.
Anyway, so thank you so much, Hamsika, for your time and sharing your experiences about mental health. We really need to applaud you for taking that courage to do so, because I'm sure there are many people who would shy away from it, but you said, like, I will do it. I'm out here. I know what I went through, and by sharing this to your journey with the people out there, and I'm sure that someone out there will be inspired and would seek help if they really need to do so. So I would like to just say thank you so much, Hamsika, and keep being you. Keep doing what you love doing, because at the end of the day, only that matters.
Yeah.
So thank you again, and we wish you all the very best and all success come your way for whatever you want to do in the future. So thank you so much again, Hamsika.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So thank you all for watching another podcast here today. So until we meet again with yet another inspiring story, stay safe, be happy, stay content, keep smiling, take care. Bye.